Good morning, children. Last day we started to discuss history first chapter, and we discussed and studied various things. And in that, mainly we discussed about map and cartographer, and technologies and terminologies, new and old terminologies, and for about the foreigners. All these things we discuss. Now I'm going to explain about historians and their sources. So when you are studying sixth standard, we studied the historians used various sources for studying the past. Okay, that is there is coins they used, monuments they used, architecture they used, then manuscripts and inscriptions. All these things are help us to historians to understand what happened in past. Okay, so always these things historians, these materials help us to understand the past. Okay, so around 700 to 1750, uh, historians used these type of things for finding out the past. Okay, so historians use different types of sources, learn about the past depending upon their period of the study and the nature of their investigation. Okay, so according to the period, what kinds of informations available, what kinds of materials available, through that they are studying. So around this period, they still used coins, monuments, architecture, and all these things they used and they studied. Then through this period, one changes is happen is that paper is that means the period paper gradually become cheaper and more available. Okay, so in this period, what happened? One important changes is happened through this period is that paper was very easily getting, and it is widely available and cheaper rate also getting. So mainly at that time, scribes means who are the writers were known as scribes the past. So they are started to use not only scribes, okay, people used to write holy text, then chronicles of rulers, letters and teachings of saints, petitions of judicial records, and for registration of accounts and taxes. Then manuscripts were collected by wealthy people, rulers and monasteries and temples. From the rulers and monasteries and temples, they were placed in the libraries and archives. So that period paper was available, and it is getting cheaply, so that people started to use writings, and they started to use the religious people, they started to write the holy text. Then chronicles for rulers, the scribes started to write about the chronicles of rulers. Okay, the history of the rulers with the day and date, they started to write. So in the history, date is very important. Okay, so the when the paper was available, the people with the date they started to write. Okay, so that is known as chronicles. According to the dates and year is clearly, and the achievements of kings and their battles and their history also, the scribes started to write. Okay, then uh, all these things they started to keep also. Okay, that means all these manuscripts, who are the wealthy people and who are interested to do that one, they are collecting these manuscripts and they are keeping in libraries. Now we have libraries in our and school. There are many very good library we have. So like that, these manuscripts, history, these books, they started to preserve well and they keep it in a library, so it will survive. So that is why they started to care these kinds of manuscripts. So that is known as archives. Archives means what is a place where documents and manuscripts are stored. That is known as archives. Okay, so like that, they started to keep in archives, or they started to make in archives and libraries, and all these manuscripts they started to keep well. Okay, so like that, the historians they can go to these libraries and they can take these all these books and they can study. Okay, and they can write the histories and all these things is happening. Then next one, there was one of the problem is that they faced is that there was no printing press. That is the main problem the historians and writers they faced. That is, there was no printing press in those days, so scribes copied manuscripts by hand. Okay, there was no printing press, so scribes copied manuscript by hand. So what is here difficulty? If you just we can take an example from us. If we are copying from these notes, I am giving some notes, and that one maybe you did not you are absent, and maybe you are copying from other students' notebook. Then what is some kinds of difficulty to understand their handwriting? That is some of the problems you will face that you facing, that is difficulty to understand their handwritings. Sometimes they maybe they are not near, means we can't ask also. Then you will guess. You will guess and write. Maybe that person's mean it is not mean, but entirely different copy you will get, because when they are copying, you will not understand their handwriting. So the meaning of the word or sentence you will understand, you will not understand. So that is why maybe you will copy, you will guess and write. Maybe the meaning can be changed. So these kinds of difficulties they also face, because there is no printing press. So for getting different copies, they have to copy from the first one. They have to copy. So that is why, because for reading we need a different copies, isn't it? Not so the original, from the original source they started to copy. That time maybe the writers, they are writing by the hand, I said. So there is no printing press. So that time the handwriting is very difficult to understand. Maybe sometimes they face difficulty to understand the handwriting, and maybe the meaning of the word and sentence can be changed. So that problem they faced. That is why maybe from the original text they are copying and going on. And maybe when they are copied 10 or 15 books, that time the last book, maybe if you compare with the first one, the original sources, many difference we can find out. Okay, so that is a one of the difficulty faced by the historians. As the scribes copied manuscripts, they also introduced small changes. A word here, a sentence there. These small differences grow over centuries of copying until manuscripts of the same textbook substantially different from one another. They are serious. This is a serious problem, because we rarely find the original manuscripts of the other today. So what is here problem means maybe the original manuscripts can be missing. That time these copied manuscripts may be different from original manuscripts, and original manuscripts we can't find out. Then we will believe this is a true. So maybe the things are wrong, but we will believe that when until the original manuscripts find out. Up to that time we are believing that this. So maybe it is maybe different. So that is a difficulty faced by these people. Okay. Then the one example is given in your textbook, that is 14th century one chronicler Ziauddin Barani. Okay, wrote his chronicle first in 1356 and other version 2 years later. Then what is happening here? The two different from each other, but historians did not know about the extent of the first version until the 1960, because what is the first version only got from the 1960. So 1936 the first version already he wrote, and what is happening, they didn't find out that one, and second version means first version's copies they got later, and original version only they got in 1960, and then only they can understand what are the difference. So you look, so these are the problems they face, the historians faced. Okay, then next class I will take about new social and political groups, the political changes and social changes happen in this period. Okay, that next class. So today we'll discuss uh, about the historians used many kinds of sources. In that they still used coins, inscription, architecture, and text records for information. And through this period, paper gradually become cheaper. So one important changes happen here means that is the paper was easily available. So the scribes can be use that one and they can copy the things. So through this period, paper gradually become cheaper and more widely available. Then manuscripts were placed in archives or library. The third important point is that these manuscripts, the writers, all these things are they started to keep very well. That is through archives or libraries they started to preserve well. The next one is that they faced a difficulties, that is there was no printing press, so that is why many problems they faced when they are copying. The different meaning is coming and the original when the until original version finding out this copies is used, sometimes the meaning is wrongly they are using. So all these things are the today's important points. You have to read the page number 4, then 5 and 6, and read many times and understand it. If you have any doubt, you can call in for me. Okay, thank you. Do the works. I will give works through assignment in Google Classroom. Okay, thank you. Take care.